They'll never tell you this in school. They'll never whisper it in church pews or office cubicles. But here's the truth, brutal, unfiltered, and undeniable. If you want to get rich, you must first kill the thoughts that keep you poor. Not the balance in your account, not the job title you carry, the thoughts. Because poverty is not just an economic condition. It's a mental prison built from habits, fears, and beliefs that were handed to you before you even knew you had a choice. And until you burn those beliefs to the ground, wealth will walk past you every single day without stopping. The poor person's mind waits for permission. The rich person's mind acts as if the crown is already theirs. The poor person fears risk. The rich person fears stagnation. The poor person measures cost. The rich person measures return. This isn't about greed, it's about power. The power to live on your own terms, to serve from abundance instead of scarcity, to make choices without a chain around your ankle. And that power begins in the mind. Think of Andrew Carnegie. He arrived in America with nothing but hunger in his eyes, no money, no connections, no safety net. But his thoughts refused to stay in the basement of possibility. He imagined steel empires before there was steel in his hands. And because he thought like a rich man before he was one, the world bent to make it so. Here's the law. Life does not give you what you deserve. It gives you what you demand through your thinking. And the poor person's thinking is a constant apology. I hope I get this job. I wish I could afford that. I can't risk losing what little I have. They don't see that the mindset of lack is the very reason their reality lacks. You want to get rich? Then stop asking, can I afford it? And start asking, how can I create it? Stop clinging to the security of the known. The known is your enemy. The known is what has kept you broke, anxious, and waiting for something magical to happen without lifting your own hand. Look at Henry Ford. Before the assembly line, before the cars, he was just a mechanic's apprentice, earning pennies. But he studied the rich. He studied systems, scale, and speed. And he refused to think like the men who surrounded him. While others calculated how to make a few extra dollars on their next paycheck, Ford was calculating how to build machines that could produce wealth over and over again, machines that would make other people rich in the process. That's rich thinking. Poor thinking sees limitation. Rich thinking sees leverage. Poor thinking sees competition. Rich thinking sees collaboration. Poor thinking spends to feel good now. Rich thinking invests to feel free later. Do not misunderstand. This is not about the size of your current wallet. It's about the size of your mental reach. You can be broke today and still think richly. You can have a negative balance and still take mental ownership of the land you plan to conquer. That's not delusion. That's the seed of destiny. Every skyscraper was once an invisible thought in someone's mind. And here's what the poor person's mind will never accept. Wealth is not an accident. It's not luck that fell on someone's lap. It's a structure built brick by brick from vision, decision, and relentless discipline. The poor person's mind waits for opportunity to knock. The rich person's mind builds the door and then sends out invitations. Every day you wake up, you're running one of two mental programs, one that digs you deeper into the pit of scarcity or one that climbs you toward the summit of abundance. There is no neutral ground. Your thoughts are either compounding like interest or decaying like rust. And if you want proof, look at the lives around you, the ones who cling to their excuses, who blame the economy, who roll their eyes when someone speaks of wealth. They stay where they are, year after year. The same car, the same job, the same complaints. That's not coincidence. That's the law of the mind made visible. But here's the great reversal. The moment you decide to think like the rich, before you have the money, before you have the evidence, you start aligning with the forces that create wealth. You start acting differently. You carry yourself differently. You see possibilities where others see dead ends. And opportunities start to see you. Because the world does not reward need, it rewards certainty. And certainty is born when you refuse to think like a poor person ever again. Most people are chasing money like it's running from them. But money is not running. It's standing exactly where it always has been, waiting for those who are prepared in thought to claim it. Napoleon Hill said, "The ladder to success is never crowded at the top." Why? because the climb requires a transformation most are unwilling to make. The poor thinker says, when I have money, I will think differently. The rich thinker says, I will think differently now, and the money will follow. This is why so many people stay trapped. They try to change their outer world without touching their inner world. They trade jobs, they move cities, they try side hustles, but they never confront the operating system in their mind. And an old operating system cannot run a new life. Look at Thomas Edison. 10,000 failed attempts before a working light bulb. Do you think a poor thinker could survive 10,000 failures? Never. A poor thinker would have quit after the first or second setback, telling himself it wasn't meant to be. But Edison thought like a rich man before the riches came. He understood that each failure was an investment, a down payment toward inevitable success. That's the difference. Poor thinking sees loss. Rich thinking sees tuition. Your thoughts are blueprints. They are the architectural drawings of your future. If you draw small, you will build small. If you draw grand, detailed, ambitious plans, you will create a life that matches that design. But here's the catch. Most people are drawing the same cramped little shack in their minds over and over again. They can repaint it, they can rearrange the furniture, but it's still the same shack. A rich thinker, he tears up the old drawing and drafts a palace, even while living in a one-bedroom apartment. He designs for the life he wants, not the one he's stuck in. And then he moves every day in alignment with that design, no matter how far away it feels. The poor person hoards pennies, afraid to lose them. The rich person plants pennies, knowing they will multiply. And yes, planting takes faith. Faith that the seed will sprout in soil you cannot see beneath. That's why most will not do it. They prefer the illusion of safety over the reality of growth. Do not misunderstand. Thinking like a rich person does not mean reckless spending. It means strategic investing in yourself, in your skills, in your network, in assets that produce. Poor thinking spends to look rich. Rich thinking invests to become rich. Andrew Carnegie once paid a young Napoleon Hill to study the most successful men in America for 20 years. The result? A philosophy that boiled down to this: the mind is the master key. If you master your mind, you master your world. Every titan of industry, every great leader, every innovator began as a person with nothing but a vision so big it frightened everyone around them. Poor thinkers mock big dreams. Rich thinkers protect them like sacred fire. Poor thinkers ask, what if it doesn't work? Rich thinkers ask, what if it does? Poor thinkers wait for motivation. Rich thinkers move with discipline. And here's the truth few can stomach. Most people will never get rich because they secretly fear what it will demand of them. They fear the responsibility, the discipline, the criticism, and the transformation required. They fear shedding the identity of the struggler because they've grown comfortable wearing it. And so they sabotage themselves to stay in the familiar cage, blaming everything except their own thinking. If you want wealth, start by firing the inner voice that tells you it's not possible for someone like you. Replace it with the voice of the rich thinker, the voice that says, I was born for this, I will learn what I must learn, and I will not stop until I hold it in my hands. Because here is the unshakable law. You cannot out-earn your mindset. The bank account will always catch up to the level of your thinking, no higher, no lower. So ask yourself right now, in this moment, are you thinking like a man building a palace or a man maintaining a shack? Are you drawing blueprints for expansion or plans for survival because your mind has already signed the contract for the life you will live? 10,000 times to invent the light bulb, not because he loved failure, but because he knew who he was becoming. Disney was fired for lacking imagination before he created a world that would outlive generations. Henry Ford went broke 5 times before he changed the world of transportation. You know what they all had in common? They killed the part of themselves that feared rejection. They murdered the voices that said, be realistic. They butchered the weak version before it could bury the genius. And that's exactly what you must do. You don't wait for life to hand you clarity. You demand it from yourself. You don't pray for discipline. You build it with repetition. You don't hope for confidence. You create it by showing up even when you're scared. You kill that weak version by refusing to feed it. Every minute spent doubting, every hour wasted overthinking, every excuse entertained, it all strengthens the enemy within. But every second of focused action, every morning you rise early with fire, every commitment you keep even when no one's watching, that's how you take his power away. The weak version of you is not immortal. He doesn't survive the furnace. He doesn't last in the fight. He doesn't win when you choose discipline over delay. He dies, screaming, every time you rise above your excuses and remind the world, I am not that man anymore. Let the world question you. Let your friends think you've changed. Let them say, you're too intense. Good. You were born to be intense. You were born to be unapologetically focused, relentlessly committed, ferociously alive. That weak version of you, he was never meant to survive. He was just the first draft. You are here to write the masterpiece. The moment you decide, truly decide, to kill that version, everything changes, not instantly, not magically, but fundamentally. Because when you burn the bridge back to who you used to be, there is no escape hatch, no soft landing, only forward, only fire. And that fire, that's what forges the real you. Listen carefully. You are not born disciplined. You're not born confident. No one exits the womb with courage tattooed on their heart. These are forged qualities, beaten into shape on the anvil of resistance. Every morning you wake up and drag your body out of bed when you don't feel like it. You swing the hammer. Every time you open your mouth and speak your truth instead of biting your tongue for comfort, you swing the hammer. Every time you show up with purpose when no one's watching, when no one's clapping, when no one's paying, you swing the damn hammer. And eventually that soft, fearful version of you, he stops fighting back. He starves, he shrinks, he dies, but only if you keep swinging. Napoleon Hill said it like this: deliberately seek the company of people who influence you to think and act on building the life you desire. Not the ones who pity your problems, not the ones who tolerate your excuses, the ones who make you ashamed to play small, the ones who demand the strongest version of you to show up every time. If you don't have those people in your life, become one of them. Become so disciplined, so driven, so focused that your very existence becomes a standard others feel obligated to rise to. You see, this is not about motivation. Motivation comes and goes like the weather. What we're talking about here is identity, and identity is built through consistency. You think winners wait to feel like it? No. Winners act and let the feelings follow, because they understand that action doesn't just change circumstances, it rewires belief. If you act like a man on a mission long enough, you become one. And a man on a mission doesn't have time to flirt with the weaker version of himself. He doesn't entertain thoughts of quitting. He doesn't keep company with cowardice. He wakes up with a fire in his chest and a vow in his soul: I will not die like this. I will not leave this world full of potential. I was too lazy, too distracted, too afraid to use. You want freedom? Start with discipline. You want confidence? Keep promises to yourself. You want clarity? Strip away everything that isn't aligned with your purpose. The weak version of you thrives in confusion. He thrives in excuses. He thrives in comfort. Kill his oxygen. Take away his shelter. Stop feeding him with thoughts like, I'm not ready, or what if I fail? You don't rise by avoiding failure. You rise by outlasting it. Let it come. Let it beat on your door like a storm, but you stand in the middle of that storm with a spine of steel and say, I will not bend. I will not bow. I was not made to retreat. This isn't just about becoming better. This is about becoming brutal with yourself. The kind of brutal that says, I don't care what I feel like. I care what I said I'd do. Because every day you act out of discipline instead of emotion, that weak version of you dies another death. And every day you show up stronger, even 1% stronger. You sharpen the weapon that will carve your future. You are not. When you live as though victory is already yours, life stops being a series of chances and starts being a series of inevitabilities. You stop playing the game like a gambler and start moving like an architect. Every action becomes a brick, every decision a beam. and slowly the cathedral of your destiny rises, not because you begged for it, but because you built it with your own two hands and the unshakable belief that it already existed in the unseen. This is the mindset of every great conqueror of circumstance. Alexander the Great did not step onto the battlefield wondering if his army could win. He acted as if the war was already over. That certainty infected his men like fire in dry grass, and they fought with the confidence of victors before the first sword was drawn. Henry Ford did not try to make the automobile for the common man. He saw it, knew it, and acted with the calm authority of someone whose idea had already transformed the world. The greatest power you can possess is not strength of body, nor even strength of intellect. It is strength of spirit, a spirit that refuses to bend under the weight of temporary defeat, a spirit that knows the difference between a setback and a verdict. Because defeat is not an event. Defeat is a decision. It is the moment you agree with failure and stop moving forward. And if you never agree, if you simply refuse to accept the possibility of final failure, you will never be truly defeated. Think about it. The most dangerous competitor in any arena is the one who fights as though the outcome has already been decided in their favor. That fighter is loose, calm, creative. Their mind is not cluttered with, what if I lose, but entirely consumed with, how will I finish this? That is how life is won, not through constant fear of loss, but through unwavering expectation of victory. But expectation alone is not enough. You cannot sit in a chair visualizing success and expect the world to deliver it like a package. Faith without work is fantasy. Acting like you've already won is about living like the person who deserves that victory. Through discipline, through relentless effort, through the refusal to compromise your vision. Wake up early because the winner you claim to be doesn't sleep away the day. Speak with integrity because the champion you say you are does not deal in lies. Treat people with respect because the leader you envision commands loyalty, not fear. Do the work no one sees because the future you imagine is built in the hours when no one is clapping for you. And here is the divine paradox. When you begin to live as though you've already won, the struggle does not vanish. It intensifies. The tests become harder. The resistance grows stronger. The climb feels steeper. Why? Because the universe does not hand over great victories to those untested. You must prove you can carry the crown you seek. Every challenge is a proving ground. Every setback, a chance to demonstrate that your belief is not made of paper but of steel. This is why most people quit. They mistake the final test for signs they are unworthy. But the truth is the opposite. The size of your trial is the measure of your destiny. The mountain is not in your way, it is the way. And when you climb it, when you bleed, when you sweat, when you push past the point where you thought you would break, you emerge not just as someone who has won, but as someone who has become. Because the real victory is not the goal itself. It is the transformation into the kind of person who could reach it. And that is why you must live as though you've already won. Because the moment you do, every act, every thought, every choice begins to align with that identity. You stop negotiating with your own excuses. You stop delaying the life you were meant to live. You stop asking, will I make it? And start declaring, I am already there. So today, decide. Decide that the waiting is over. Decide that you will walk into every room, every challenge, every conversation with the quiet, unstoppable confidence of one who has already crossed the finish line. Decide that the crown is already on your head, the victory already in your hands, and your life is simply catching up to the vision you hold. And as you do, you will feel something shift, first in you, then around you. People will begin to treat you differently, not because they know your future, but because they can sense it in your presence. Opportunities will start appearing, not because they were never there, but because you have finally become the person who can see them. Your life will rise to meet the standard you set for yourself. Because here is the truth. The world does not give to the needy, it gives to the certain. And when you are certain, when you act, speak, and move like the victor you already are, there is nothing left to chase. Only a life left to claim. So act like you've already won and watch what happens next.